Okay, thank you very much. Well, as I've just been introduced, I'm Krzysztof, Chief Analyst with Omdia, responsible for software and network evolution topics. I'll invite the panel to come up, please, now. The panel will be focusing, as this stream says, as this stream explains, it's very much with a business focus. I think this one hopefully will be pulling together, talking about business models, will hopefully bring together some of the themes you've already been hearing about earlier. Yeah, please take a seat. So it's about, network as a platform, telco as a platform. You can say it whichever way, network as a service. It's all a blurred area to a certain extent, but it's about how you actually bring all these elements that we've been hearing about earlier together. So what I'll do is I'll jump straight in, rather than just asking for everyone to introduce themselves. What I'll do is I'll jump straight in the first question, which is, what do you see as the risks and rewards of the emerging network as a platform or telco as a platform models? And as we go through one by one, introduce yourself and just to say, well, where are you coming from? What is your interest in this topic? So let's start here with Benji, and then we'll go
Actually, because I'm the only rose among the thorns on this panel, and it's always ladies first, I'll actually allow one of the gentlemen to go first.
No
Michael?
problem at all.
Risk and reward, right?
Right, so I'm Patryk Debicki, I'm the CTO at Realize. So I just going to mention about rewards. I think it's quite obvious about diversification of revenue, innovation that can be brought by the developers and all the ecosystem that is built around. As Realize, we are more focused on reducing risks for our customers, right? And there is a number of risks that I see in here. One is the technical debt and the complexity, because network as a platform or telco as a platform is not just about exposing beautiful things to the developers community. It's actually about connecting everything that sits behind. And this is a big challenge, to making sure that connectivity and actually orchestration of the services is simple, or at least possible in some cases, because legacy systems sometimes is very difficult to connect together.
Hello, everybody. I'm Laurent Leboucher. I'm CTO in Orange, so leading network evolution. So I think there is a part of the story which is about rewards and expectation that we can generate new revenue, and not only be on a kind of flattish slope of even commodity slope on connectivity. I think there is, we already identify some very interesting use cases. I will go into more details afterwards. I think there is also the expectation that when we bring features to developers, at the same time, all those features need to be provided as a service, and I mean completely automated. So that means that under the hood, the operating model needs to change and needs to become much leaner. So there is also an expectation that we can improve a lot on the bottom line, the efficiency of network operations. But there are also some risks. The risks are because there are some security risks. We will expose the network in a different way. So there are ways that we can mitigate, but there are risks to increase the surface of attack. There are also risks if we don't market well the features that we could potentially cannibalize some existing offers. So we can go into more details, but if we think about what the business of what we're doing today with SMS for one-time password, when we move to identity-related APIs and so on, so there are this kind of discussion that are ongoing today and others. We will have the same with regard to quality on demand. So we will need to be cautious on that. But overall, I see much more value than risk.
Thank you.
Okay.
Colin.
Right, Colin Bannon, CTO of BT Business. Hi, everybody. I'm going to cover risks as well, but sort of tell you a bit of a story. If you think about telcos today, what's the difference between a NAS or a telco as a platform? Many from a business, so the lived experience for me is around major enterprise customers and SMB in the enterprise side of the business. We've gone from a past that needs to change, where we had sort of tightly integrated, vertically integrated, stove-piped portfolio. There were individual platforms, individual resolver teams that we would need to glue together as part of solutions for customers. And that there was friction moving between portfolio. And the thing that keeps me up at night is how we stay relevant. And there's a real need for those artificial stovepipes in the architecture and the organizational design behind it to be broken down into where you have more horizontal layers of capabilities that allows for more innovation and introduction of new product features and products, but also allows greater agility, where you're taking people out of those layers, that you can move at the speed of other parts of that customer's business outcomes. So they had cloud moving at the pace of the business, and then, within spinning up your compute and capabilities within a few seconds, and then you go to the network department and ask for a new circuit or something like that, and it would, you'll be 6 weeks to 6 months. And there was a disconnect there, and moving to something that is much more automated, both in the sort of pricing and quoting world, through to the fulfillment, through to the automation, and the ability to introduce things, and also the ability to move from one product to another without experiencing any interruption, by breaking those layers and treating it more as a platform, is absolutely what is needed by the market in terms of almost 100% of the feedback of our customers right now. However, the risk, because we haven't really talked about risks. Well, first of all, our product managers, it's a deeply uncomfortable journey for them culturally. Because before they could own their stovepipe, they could own their piece of CPE. We could sell 6 or 7 different devices into a customer where perhaps only one device now will work. And they could control the P&L. It was very good. Now, so think of it as analogy as they all owned their own house. They could decide how they would paint it, whatever, and now they're moving to an apartment. And somebody else owns that apartment and owns the maintenance of that. And it's a cultural shift. And also those product managers now need to think about an API-first platform product. So they need to think of it like a software developer. And they didn't need to do that. So there's a skills change and a cultural change. And finally, on the sales team, if you're in a network as a service, as a platform as a service product, just like the hyperscalers, that has new commercial models that are on demand, you have salespeople who used to love to lock somebody in for a 5-year contract because they're being remunerated on ICV. And now this is on demand where you don't have a lock-in. So there's a different commercial model and a different sales remuneration as well in its extreme format. So the risks are more challenges perhaps from a cultural perspective, but the reality is I think it's not an if, it's a when in terms of this journey for service providers.
Okay.
Nice.
Benji.
Yes. So, from realities, I think we all come from deeply invested fortress pipe ownership in the ground or in our networks, right? And shifting from that into thinking, how do you unlock the fortress of the infrastructure and the viable returns that you need to safeguard, especially in an era now of a lot of geopolitical uncertainty. We're no longer in a cheap interest rate environment any longer, very demanding, of course, as well, but we are still a safe haven as telcos. That's a good thing, luckily. But moving from that fortress to companies and customers want the bridges that access those pipes that we've built. And how we do that is going to be highly how we change our mindset towards both our suppliers, partners, and customers, but also to how we commercialize certain products, the models behind it, the monetization, the share of profit, the share of revenue, the share of risk exposure, security, integration, orchestration. So it's quite an interesting time to be in telco right now, because you can also think about the era where we went into WhatsApp. What happened then, right? We were all a little bit behind in telco to actually get onto that train. And now it's the same with platformization, standardization, exposure. It's exactly the same, because I see our biggest risk as telco not getting our fair share of the monetization of the exposure of our assets in whichever format. And it starts with how do we standardize our protocols, how do we standardize our metering, which are the topics that we agree on we will standardize and allow for cannibalization and trade-offs. And I think that is really important, because that protection that we also need to have for our infrastructure, our security, whilst enabling economies, flow, businesses, etc., is up to how we also set some of the rules of the game now. Because the scale-ups, the techcos, because we're all trying to become a techco as a telco, yeah, but then we also need to start thinking like a techco. Yeah. And we need to start monetizing like a techco. And all of the hygiene factors of security, exposure, etc., that we get paid for them. So I see a lot more opportunity, but a lot more in terms of the mindset of a telco. And exciting times ahead.
It is, and thank you. And that's been very nicely balanced, because I thought I'm going to have to badger you to be a bit more negative, all of you, but actually you've been very good in discussing the trade-offs that have to be made in terms of the complexity, in terms of potential losses and everything like that. But maybe let's focus two questions next. First one, I want to just split it into, because it's been a really mix of stuff that you've been talking about. I guess one is, I'd just like to ask whoever wants to sort of leap in around where are the real opportunities, where do you see interest in terms of use cases at the moment? And the second question, I'll warn you already about the second question, it's more about what are the technology building blocks, enablers, and obviously we've been hearing a lot earlier today around sort of AI, agentic AI, network APIs very much in this particular session, but it'd just be nice to talk. So first, in terms of the opportunities, not necessarily maybe too early talking about revenue, but where are the hot use cases around this? Who wants to jump in first?
Okay, I will try. So I like the way Colin introduced the different stovepipes. The way we do our business today, we are organized also in a similar way. Meaning that we have initiatives on, let's say, the fixed B2B business, which is transforming itself in order to become much more software-driven with a network as a service for connectivity that we provide to our customer for the one connectivity, moving also to cloud connectivity, and it has to come through a platform, and this platform provides at the same time the connectivity as a service, but also all the security features which are important. That could be firewalls, that could be SASE. SASE is becoming much more important, and it comes also in the platform as an option. Then you can add up on top of that things like, you mentioned it, but it's not yet available, but I think this is something that we can think of, quantum safe. Quantum safe at some point will need to come also as a service. That's for one part. But then you have also on the mobile and IoT part, I think we have also another stovepipe where we have our traditional IoT business. Our traditional IoT business, for the time being, is still linked with, I would consider, quite basic connectivity. And we have here an opportunity to differentiate the quality according to the different use cases. For some use cases, we may need a more specific connectivity with, let's say, not extremely short latency, but at least latency which is guaranteed. Let's say 30 milliseconds. That has a lot of value, and we need to be able to provide it also as a service.
That's bold, that you're going to
Yes.
be willing to give a guarantee.
Exactly.
Because that's...
Well,
Well.
it's not guarantee forever.
No, I know.
But I think it's a kind of statistic guarantee. And we need a way also to make it in the contract acceptable. And then you have everything. I would consider that also as a new stovepipe, what we call the new network APIs, camera APIs. And we try to avoid to have it in each country, but to make it global across our different footprint. But then the beauty will really come when you can stitch the different stovepipes into one
100%.
platform. Because there you have also interesting use cases. Like, for instance, take SASE.
Yeah.
SASE is...
Where are we now with this? I mean, that's a question not just for Laurent, but maybe everybody on the panel. But where are we now on this journey?
I think we are at the beginning of the journey. I think we already have, for instance, on the fix, if I take the stovepipe, the fixed part, we already have a platform. We call it Evolution Platform. We are already commercial on the third stovepipe, which is the network APIs for some countries, France, Spain, and we are onboarding the other European countries for the first APIs, which are around identity, fraud mitigation, and so on. We are not there yet for quality on demand. That will be later this year. That will come later. And we are not there yet, I'm completely honest with you, in order to, for instance, stitch together quality with IoT. I would like to be able, at some point, to attach to a certain, to some devices, a specific quality. And it's something that will come, but not yet in the roadmap.
Okay. Anyone else want to?
I have a question, actually, because how I would love to see quality of demand. You know, we all are on conference calls all the time, and when I travel, and I actually travel quite a lot, I've never ever seen yet the possibility to pay extra money to actually receive this quality. Now the question is, how do you build a business case around it? Because it's been always a debate to provide a premium quality. For other people, you need to deteriorate quality because we've only got limited amount of spectrum. It's like the business class seat takes 3 seats from the economy class, right? And how much money do you need to pay for the premium service in order to be able to deteriorate the quality for economy seats on the network?
It's not easy, is it? I mean, there's obviously a lot of at MWC this year. We were seeing a lot of sort of the quality on demand sort of cases were often around emergency services, etc., that kind of thing. I mean, if you speak to Chinese operators, you get some sort of interesting stuff going on there. But there's still a big question, isn't there, around the pricing issue and how you do those trade. Again, it's what you were all saying earlier. It's the trade-offs, isn't it?
So I'm going to say what I've observed a little bit with a lot of technical people in the room and a lot of commercial people in the room, right? I'm trying to be in the middle. Quality on demand, the technical experts and the network guys typically want to overcompensate and overassure quality on demand and speed tiering and overcompensate for what the customer actually will need and was willing to pay for. The customer willingness to pay for is the possible guarantee and the possible prioritization and the possible on-demand quality. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I made the comment about you're willing to give a guarantee because only if you give the intention, it will probably be good enough for the customer to pay. Your spectrum can manage the loads because it's not all at the same time, all at the same location. So you can smooth it quite a bit because a lot of us also have excess capacity, which we're not monetizing. So if you sell it as an intention, And in the event of a failure, yeah, then you get a discount or whatever. Highly unlikely that a customer will actually complain because they wouldn't know if their nano speed's here or not. Also, for example, if you're traveling and you're roaming, so KPN, best mobile network of the world, yes, thank you very much. However, only in the Netherlands. But the perception of the customer, a Dutch customer, is like, I thought you're the best mobile network in the world. Yeah, but only in the Netherlands. Once you go across border, it's our roaming contract, it's our throttling, it's our capacity. I can't give a quality guarantee there. So then it just goes back to perception. So I think there's a great opportunity here. We don't have to have perfection. We should have the intention of perfection.
I agree.
But in the meantime, we're just not delivering on some form of what the customer actually is expecting and willing to pay for, which is lack of opportunity on the table.
And I guess in the consumer sector, it's the education that needs to sort of be in place to, because otherwise there are very high expectations.
So one thing is,
go on.
education, but
Patryk.
also here where the AI can help a lot. I call it expectations and demand-driven customer experience. Expectations is what is your tariff, what is your status with the network, how much money you pay, and demand is driven by the type of application you use. So if you have the good analytics that give you the prediction of what this customer can do, then indeed you can tailor the specific tariffs or specific quality of demand expectations to specific customers.
And if I may, here I think what will be critical is to understand in depth the mapping between quality of experience and quality of service. I think today we are much more inside out. We should be much more outside in, meaning that quality of experience, as it is really perceived, is much more important. The problem is that it's very difficult to understand the quality of experience, how it's really perceived. So only with AI we'll be able to understand the mapping and be able to adjust. And I think it will be an agile journey where we will need to adjust more and more the quality of service that we can provide, but at a cost which is affordable and which can really make a difference which matters on the experience side.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting issue, because otherwise it's horse and cart. You don't know where you're going.
Yep.
In terms of you don't know what the demand is until it's actually out there, and the developers or the use cases are actually engaging people. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? I'm conscious we've only got about, if we're keeping on time and we're not having rumbling stomachs around the room, we've only got 5 minutes left. So even though we started a few minutes late, let me come on to the technology issue. Obviously, there's a lot being talked about already today, but in terms of sort of like delivering and supporting these models, what do you think are the key building blocks? Or maybe to ask it a different way, what is it that's going to is helping to move things forward now? I don't know. Let me pick on Patryk. Patryk, right. Why don't you start and then give the others time to think.
So on the technology side, as I mentioned before, the key thing is to be able to connect the dots. So really, the sign of intelligence is the capability to connect different things together. And I think that's where the problem is. That's where we need to start. So when you provision a service, or if you want to expose the service that can be provisioned, you want, for example, build an MVNO with a press of a button. It requires a lot of things to happen on the way. Now, going step by step, can help a lot, and I think that we have no excuse to accelerate with the dawn of the agentic AI. Because what we do on the agentic AI front, we start with documenting the processes. You document a process, and then you see which part of the process takes the most time that I can start with. I can build it. If it is a deterministic process, I can do the workflow automation. If it is non-deterministic process, I can embed an agent. And I can create the step-by-step roadmap to deliver the service that needs to be exposed to the end user or to the end business, right?
Yeah. Colin.
Yeah, the first technology that you need for a fully automated, non-human intervention platform as a service is a good inventory. So there are some real brilliant basics that you need to get right.
I knew we'd get back to that one. That's cropped up all morning.
Get back to your
hasn't it?
fundamentals. Because when you had people in the process, they were actually cleaning the data as you went along in your workflows. And if you're going to make something super agile, and if you're going to open up the core of your network, and what was a black box, now make it actually programmable, and you can start to inject business intent like we're doing with both our global fabric for BT, which is a NAS platform, internet, MPLS, ELAN, E-line, but also our UK fabric. You're going to need some fundamentals around not just technologies, but also behaviors, like the whole APIs that Laurent was talking about. You need to take the approach that it's not a democracy. Each platform team, each product manager can't go and just build their own discrete stack of APIs, often as an afterthought. No. You actually need to think about a set of shared, an identity, security, single sign-on, all these shared capabilities, platform thinking, that these technologies or behaviors need to change. Because before you could have these towers of isolation, but now as you build a single platform, you need to think about this way before than you do that. And if you think about, if you built an API-first platform, now you don't say, oh, I have one team developing a console for our own internal lead-to-cache people. And then that's with one set of APIs. And then I'll have a wholesale team, and I'll build a set of wholesale APIs. And then 2 years later, oh, some of my enterprise customers need a few APIs, and I'll tack them onto the end. No, you actually build them in your fundamental base layer that are reshared, and everybody consumes that, and it becomes role-based. So it's a fundamental rethinking than perhaps a lot of our product managers may not have had before. So for me, it's less about a widget or an individual piece of technology. There's no golden rule. It's actually around the architectural conformance and culture and behaviors of how you approach this as you pivot from traditional telco to that. Now, the final thing I'll say is on the upside is, all of a sudden, as you build a platform, me in the enterprise world, I've spent 20 years scaring banks that are DIYers because they, if BT comes along, I'll lose all my teams. They'll outsource me. Whereas now the conversation is completely different. I'm a platform, so I'm not a threat anymore. So they can keep their control. They can keep their they don't have to give up control. So it's a really interesting upside that we're finding that we were surprised about. One is it ends up being a really great wholesale platform because we, as telcos, need to be more transparent on how the intent of that behavior that you were talking about, quality of demand or quality of experience, we can be transparent and carry that intent across each other and be transparent and serve each other where we're not. So wholesale is exciting, but also the DIYers who are out there in the enterprise world all of a sudden are going, oh, you're a platform rather than an outsourcer. And that's a great upside that we've found out. So a lot of risk, a lot of reward.
Indeed.
Okay, thank you. Benji,
tailwind on that, Colin. I think it comes down to portfolio management. So your principles of design, just as when we all went agile, we said, okay, we have to have Mach principles in place, right? So that all the teams can at least develop to certain standards. I think it does come back to your portfolio management, that you don't duplicate or replicate or create multiple same versions of the same intention of the platform or whatever. You see that across the board. I think some telcos have a bit more complex than a one country operator like KPN. But that said, your asset registry is actually quite poor because teams don't share actually with each other. So how do you actually create that culture of, we create one core platform, these are the capabilities, these are the archives, these are the principles of design, this is how we do it, this is how we meter it, this is how we monitor and ensure the quality is there, the return is there. No hobby horses, because there's a lot of us hobby horses in all the dev teams. So I think that's important. And I think at the end of the day, it is also to see yourself as an ecosystem player. So if you see yourself platforming your telco instead of productizing your telco, it's a little bit of a legacy, it's just a transformation that you need to do anyway, right? You can't stay in the old, and it's also an incredible opportunity for simplification. However, with the simplification comes, again, the culture, because people realize that their jobs are at stake. If there's not these multiple mushroom teams everywhere, and you only have one core team, one core master enterprise architecture, control, governance, good hygiene, yeah, that does mean there's a lot of opportunity and simplification of organizational structure. And at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to create the return.
Thank you. I think that's probably a good point. We had wonderful plans to talk about what next, and actually some of the organizational issues involved, etc. But alas, we've run out of time. You all need to be fed. But my takeaways are: it's not a democracy. Complexity. Culture, as always, it's always culture that gets, it's the organizational issues come in, and it's the complexity, part of the complexity is all those trade-offs, but very interesting conversation.
I like that. Think outside in for this for us. I think that's what's going to help telcos.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's not what operators are always famous for. No. So thank you. Can you thank the panel, please?